The old human, his voice a dry whisper amplified by the life support system, looked at the glittering serpentine scales of his wife, the Ethel elf. "I know this is not the man you married, my love," he rasped, the words thick with shame and a sorrow that transcended centuries. "War and time did this to me. But I need you to understand why I kept the dragons hidden, why I was willing to risk everything. Even your trust for this secret." The silence in the cabin was heavier than any black hole. Because outside, the dragons had just begun to roar. The deep void of space was not silent. Not to Anya Vance. It hummed with the slow, rhythmic pulse of the Star Cradle, her customized long-haul freighter. Anya, a woman whose true age was betrayed only by the careful, almost serene way she managed her movements, stood at the bridge viewport. Her frame was deceptively delicate, clad in the sleek, reinforced synth silk of her pilot uniform, but the look in her emerald green eyes was ancient, sharp, and infinitely weary. She was what the galaxy called a soul-touched, a rare hybrid of Terran ancestry and the near-mythical Ethel, the spacefaring elves of the Cygnus Rift. She wasn't alone. Curled loosely around the main navigation console, a shimmering, obsidian beast the size of a small starskiff was currently shedding a plume of fine golden dust. This was Ignis, her oldest and most temperamental companion. Ignis was a dragon, not in the whimsical fairy tale sense, but a genuine, genetically engineered relic of the old Terran dominion, a weapon repurposed into a pet, a creature of staggering chaotic power. He snorted, a plume of acrid, faintly metallic smoke wafting past Anya's face, and opened a single colossal eye, the iris a molten gold. "Be still, my flame," Anya murmured, placing a gaunted hand on the cool, hard plating of his snout. "We are still too close to the Tellar border. They may be pirates, but they still have scanners that can read the gravitational signature of a napping god." Ignis rumbled, a sound that vibrated through the deck plates and deep into Anya's bones, a frequency only she truly understood. He shifted, his scales clicking like 1,000 pieces of finely worked onyx armor. He was not her only one. Locked deep within the Star Cradle's reinforced cargo bay, in a chamber pressurized and shielded to a ridiculous degree, slept Briza, her second dragon, a younger, smaller creature of shimmering sapphire and silver, whose element was not fire, but pure, kinetic energy manipulation. They were her secret, her legacy, and her greatest liability. Anya adjusted the thermal regulators in her suit. The air in the freighter was kept deliberately cold, a concession to her Ethel heritage, which thrived in lower temperatures. She glanced at the chronometer, calculating the jump coordinates to the neutral zone trading post of Xylos. They needed credits. She needed to buy medical-grade biogel for Rhys, her husband. The old human. The thought of Rhys brought a fresh, stinging wave of anxiety. He was not aboard the Star Cradle right now. He was on the orbital station Sanctuary, recuperating from a prolonged exposure to what the doctors vaguely called temporal spatial decay, the slow, corrosive price paid by those who spent too long in the heart of the Great Warp Wars, navigating through unstable jump points and fractured timelines. Rhys was a veteran of the human interstellar defense forces, an ancient warrior whose physical body, while still handsome, was a fragile shell held together by sheer human tenacity and cutting-edge xenotech. A shrill, unexpected alarm broke the quiet tension. Red lights flared across the bridge. Not a standard pirate proximity warning, but a Dominion incursion alert. Anya's ancient Ethel reflexes took over instantly. "Ignis, wake up!" she commanded, her voice suddenly metallic and sharp. "Code 4, get ready to power the auxiliary shields." The black dragon was instantly alert, his massive body unwinding from the console with startling speed. His wings, normally folded flat and indistinguishable from his body, flared outward, stretching the width of the bridge. They were made of a substance that absorbed all light. making them appear as holes torn in reality itself. A small fleet, 3 heavy cruisers and 5 destroyers, emerged from the dark matter distortion just off their port bow. They bore the crest of the Tellar Republic, the very pirates Anya had dismissed as a minor threat moments ago. But this was no standard patrol. This was a war formation. "They are targeting the cargo bay," Ignis hissed, the sound a grinding of stone on steel. His voice, to her mind, was deep and ancient, a counterpoint to her own cool, melodic thoughts. "They know. They know what we carry." Anya's heart clenched. It wasn't the freighter or the paltry trade goods they were after. It was the cargo bay. It was Breeza, who was currently emitting a low, powerful energy hum that could be tracked by advanced sub-frequency scanners. The Tellar Republic, a military regime that had built its empire on stolen old Terran weaponry, had been hunting the remaining battle dragons for centuries. Shields to maximum power. All energy rerouted to the stern drive, Anya barked, throwing levers and slamming activation runes into the navigation panel. "We are not fighting them. We are outrunning them. Engage warp drive sequence Gamma 7, make the jump unstable." They won't follow a ghost signal. The massive cruiser at the head of the fleet fired. A torrent of plasma lances, bright blue and utterly lethal, screamed toward the star cradle. Anya braced, but the blast hit the port shield array, the energy momentarily overwhelming the deflectors. The ship shuddered violently, throwing Anya against the console. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard Ignis roar not in pain, but in pure, unfettered rage. The dragon reared up, his mouth opening wide, and a silent, blinding wave of heat rolled off him. It wasn't a visible flame, but a rapid, localized energy transfer that instantly superheated the external hull plating near the impact zone. The Tellar pilot, momentarily blinded by the thermal spike, veered slightly. It bought Anya a fraction of a second. She activated the emergency jump. "Hang on, Ignis." The ship was enveloped in a chaotic surge of light and distortion as the drive tore a hole through space. The last thing Anya saw before the blinding white tunnel consumed the view was the lead Tellar cruiser, its commander realizing that they had just cornered a monster, and that the beautiful green-eyed pilot they were chasing was not the prey, but the guardian. Anya's last thought, as the star cradle plunged into the uncontrolled warp, was of Rhys, alone and frail on the distant station. "I promised you safety, my husband. I promised you peace. Now because of me, war and time is coming for us both." The uncontrolled jump had torn the star cradle free of the Tellar fleet, but it had done so violently. The freighter didn't glide out of warp. It slammed back into real space, the transition marked by a grating screech that threatened to peel the skin off the hull. Anya gasped, her lungs burning as she hauled herself upright. The bridge glowed with a sickly yellow emergency light. Smoke coiled lazily from the primary navigation array. The ship's internal stabilizers were whining miserably, trying to compensate for the rapid, erratic spin the jump had induced. Ignis was a dark silhouette amidst the chaos. His massive body curled protectively over the console. He was breathing heavily, his scales faintly scorched where the plasma lances had glanced off the shields and superheated the hull beneath. He was the only reason the ship hadn't been ripped apart. "Status report," Anya ordered, her voice trembling slightly, but firming quickly. She ignored the dull ache in her left shoulder and focused on the flickering diagnostic screen. "Hull integrity at 90%, Ignis ground out, the mental projection of his voice rasping with exertion. "Shield generator is offline. Main drive is fused, requires a full power cycle and thermal vent. We are adrift, Anya, and we are deep inside the neutral zone, well off our scheduled route." Anya ran a hand through her silver-streaked dark hair, her emerald eyes scanning the star charts. They were dangerously close to the Xanthian scraps. a nebula notorious for its magnetic anomalies and as a haven for every scavenger, pirate, and fugitive in the sector. Worse, they were less than 100 light-years from Sanctuary Station, the last place she wanted to be while running hot. We need a place to hide. Ignis, she decided, moving with renewed focus to the damaged AV panel. We cannot risk bringing this heat near Rhys. Not now, when the Tellar patrols will be scouring every standard jump point for us. The dragons, Ignis pressed. They know. They were specifically targeting Bruce's containment signature. Someone betrayed us, Anya. Someone knew. The accusation hung heavy in the recycled air. Anya didn't deny it. The knowledge of her dragons was confined to a vanishingly small circle. Herself, Rhys, and 3 members of her secretive Ethel clan, 2 of whom were supposedly deceased. Betrayal meant a devastating crack in her carefully constructed life. I will deal with the who later. Right now we deal with the what, she said, pulling up a deeply encrypted sub-frequency map. There is an old, abandoned mining colony in the scraps. Designation Dormant 7. No power signatures, no registered flight paths. It will take a day to coast there on auxiliary power, but it's our only chance to vent the drives and prepare for a real jump. She set the low-power trajectory. The ship settled into a glacial, agonizing crawl through the star-dusted void. The next 20 hours were a blur of intense, back-breaking labor. Anya, despite her Ethel grace, was immensely strong. She worked alongside Ignis, manually replacing thermal regulators and bypassing fused circuitry. The dragon used his immense physical strength, and more subtly, his inherent control over localized energy to manipulate components that would have vaporized a human hand as they worked. Their conversation drifted, inevitably, to Rhys. "How is the old fool?" Ignis asked, the mental image of a sneering grin accompanying the words. It was affectionate mockery. "He is suffering," Anya replied simply, tightening a plasma conduit seal with a wrench the size of her torso. "The temporal decay is progressing. His memory of the war is clear, but his memory of us, of our life outside the combat zone, is beginning to fray. It is the time that is truly consuming him." Ignis stopped working for a moment, his golden eye fixed on the empty space where the Tellar fleet had been. "He is a good human. He saw what we were, weapons, and he chose to treat us as family. He took the risk for your sake, Anya. He took the risk for peace," she corrected softly. "Rhys never saw you as a weapon, even when he served the command that created you. He saw you as a prisoner. When we ran, we freed each other." She hadn't told Rhys about the recent encounter. She couldn't. His fragile emotional state could not handle the knowledge that the Tellar Republic, the very enemy he fought for decades, was now on their trail, hungry for the very power that had once helped him win the war. The whole point of their life in the neutral zone was to live in obscurity, outside the reach of the forces that wanted either to use or destroy them. They finally arrived at Dormant 7. It was a skeletal ruin, rusted gantries, collapsed dome structures, and the hulking shell of an orbital dry dock, abandoned centuries ago. Anya guided the star cradle into the dry dock's massive lightless bay. She activated the magnetic clamps, locking the freighter into the station's dead grip. Anya donned a heavy environmental suit. "I need to check on Breeza. The uncontrolled jump might have stressed her containment field." "I will guard the perimeter," Ignis said, his voice now a low growl. "Be quick. I can feel the electromagnetic echoes in the scraps. It's a perfect place for predators to hunt." The cargo bay was 3 decks down. Anya passed through 3 security checkpoints, each requiring her unique Ethel Terran retinal scan and a blood sample measures, put in place specifically to keep the dragons in. Bruce's containment chamber was a massive, cylindrical structure reinforced with layers of neutronium steel and humming with specialized dampeners. The dragon inside was stunning, smaller than Ignis, younger, her scales the color of a winter sky, laced with silver lightning streaks. She slept, curled tightly, but her kinetic field was visibly erratic, pulsing with unstable energy. Anya approached the reinforced viewport. Brisa was the more dangerous of the two, the dragon whose power wasn't heat, but the manipulation of molecular bonds. She could tear a cruiser apart atom by atom with a single focused thought. "I am sorry, my sky child," Anya whispered, placing her hand against the thick glass. "Your mother was careless." She initiated the field stabilization protocol. As the field's chaotic energy began to subside, a low, faint sound caught Anya's attention. It wasn't the ship, or the station, or even Brisa. It was a rhythmic, artificial ping. Anya froze, her soup microphone amplifying the chilling sound. Ping dot dot ping dot dot ping. Dot dot ping dot dot. It was a standard deep space distress beacon, broadcasting on an extremely low, almost archaic frequency. And it was coming from inside the station's dry dock, somewhere just outside. The Star Cradle's hull. Someone else was here. Not Tellar, not a pirate, but someone who was either in trouble or attempting to lure them out. A sudden, jarring thought struck her. The beacon was broadcasting Rhys's personal, unregistered ID code, the code he only used to signal her. Anya tore off her gauntlet. The familiar cold air, a shock to her ethel skin, and pressed her hand against the control panel. War and Time had not finished its game. It had led the hunters away, only to corner the prey using the one thing she could never ignore: her love for the old human. "Ignis," she whispered into the comms, her voice tight with terror and rising resolve. "We have a problem. Lock down Brisa's chamber. I think they have him." Anya raced back toward the bridge, the ancient, decaying structure of Dormant 7 echoing with the frantic rhythm of her footsteps. The dread that had been a dull background hum for centuries now screamed in her ears. The distress beacon, Rhys's private, archaic signal, was the ultimate psychological weapon. It was a promise of reunion laced with the bitter poison of a trap. "Anya, stand down." Ignis's voice, a tempest of concern and warning, hammered into her mind. "This is too clean. The beacon is localized, passive. No backup signal, no interference. It's a lure for a specific kind of desperation." Anya slammed through the bridge hatch. She was already stripping off her environmental suit, tossing the bulky armor onto the deck. Desperation is their specialty, Ignis. War and Time taught Rhys how to set a perfect trap, and they know the only thing that will make me drop my guard is him. She pulled on a lightweight combat-ready sheath over her pilot uniform, checking the charge of the ethyl energy pistol holstered at her hip. "If you go, they take the ship, they take Brisa, and they have you," Ignis argued, his tail twitching restlessly against the console. "If I don't go, they kill Rhys, and I can't live with that," Anya countered, her voice dangerously level. She activated the external sensors, trying to pierce the gloom of the dry dock. The beacon's signal was strongest at the far end of the bay, near a massive rusted gantry where old mining equipment had been left to crumble. "I need you to stay here," Anya commanded, locking eyes with the vast molten gold orb of Ignis's eye. "Secure the Star Cradle. If I am not back in 2 hours, you make the jump. Unstable, chaotic, anywhere. Do not let them have Brisa, do you? Understand?" Ignis lowered his massive head, his snout nearly touching her. "I understand the command, Anya, but I do not agree with the sacrifice. You are the only one who can keep us safe." "Then survive for me," she whispered, turning to the external airlock. "I will not let his final act be a pawn in their centuries-long game." The air in the dry dock was heavy with the metallic tang of rust and the chill of deep space. Anya's boots clicked quietly on the pitted metal deck as she moved through the bay. The light from her helmet lamp cut a narrow swath through the pervasive darkness. Every shadow seemed to stretch and writhe, holding a hidden threat. She moved with the silent, fluid grace of her ethyl heritage, weaving between the broken gantries and skeletal support beams. Her senses were amplified. She could hear the faint, residual hum of the beacon, the distant drip-drip of condensation, and the almost imperceptible scrape of something metallic against the floor far ahead. The distress beacon was taped crudely to the side of a defunct ore hopper. It was a cheap, military-grade Model 1 Rhys would have recognized immediately. She knelt, her energy pistol held steady, and deactivated it. As the pinging stopped, the silence rushed in, thick and absolute. "Show yourselves," Anya spoke into the silence. Her voice was automatically translated and amplified by her suit, cutting through the void with cold authority. "The game is over. You have the wrong prey." A shadow detached itself from the gloom of a nearby support pillar. It was a human, a man, slight, dressed in patched, deep space fatigues. He held a small, antique projectile pistol, its iron sight aimed directly at Anya's head. "The game is just beginning, elf," the man drawled, his voice a rough echo in the large space. "And you have exactly what we came for." Anya recognized the man's accent. Tellar Borderlands. A low-ranking operative, a grunt they used for cleanup. She immediately swept the area with her eyes, searching for the true tactician, the one who had set the trap. "Where is Rhys?" she demanded, taking a slow, steady step toward him. The man smirked, his eyes darting nervously toward something behind Anya. "The old warrior is having a well-deserved rest. He helped us with the lure. A little genetic sequencing. A bit of mind stem. He practically wrote the code for us. He wants you to surrender. He said his one regret was hiding his secret cargo from you." Lies. Rhys would never betray her. He might apologize for his past, which was the burden of the old human, but he would never willingly hand over her family, her dragons. But the words confirmed the worst. They had Rhys, and he was being used, the scent of a much larger presence, one hidden by advanced cloaking tech, suddenly hit Anya's heightened olfactory sensors, the cold, mineral smell of Tellar battle armor. It was directly behind the support pillar. "You can take me," Anya offered, lowering her pistol slightly, a calculated risk. "But you will not take my cargo. I will destroy it before you ever touch the hold. Let me see Rhys." The man hesitated, the surprise visible in his eyes. He wasn't prepared for her surrender. This was her opening. In a move that defied human physiology, Anya pivoted, throwing her entire body weight toward the support pillar. She didn't fire at the man. She fired a concentrated pulse of energy at the ground between her and the pillar. The impact was violent, the burst vaporizing the metal deck and sending a shower of molten shrapnel into the air. The shrapnel instantly overloaded the proximity sensors of the cloaked figure behind the pillar. The distortion field flickered, revealing the hulking, armored shape of a Tellar commander, a veteran of the dragon hunts, his gauntlet already moving toward a plasma repeater mounted on his shoulder. Anya was faster. Her pistol fired again, not at the commander's armor, which was too thick, but at the joints of his helmet visor. The focused ethyl energy sliced through the weaker seam, and the commander crumpled without a sound, his mission ending instantly. The Borderlands grunt, startled by the sudden violence, squealed and lifted his antique pistol. Anya turned, her eyes now burning with a cold fury. "Where is Rhys?" Before the man could answer, a thin, silver net, humming with a high frequency, electrobond, shot out of the darkness and wrapped around Anya. It was specialized anti-ethyl tech, designed to bind her with overwhelming kinetic force. She struggled against the paralyzing current, the world blurring as her muscles locked up. A new figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, taller than the commander, clad in the highly stylized black and chrome of the Tellar scientific fleet. She held the control panel for the net, a grim smile on her face. "He is exactly where he needs to be, elf," the woman said, her voice smooth and devoid of emotion. "Rhys Reed is the key to unlocking your war beasts. He is our living, breathing control frequency. And now that we have you, the dragons will fly for the Tellar Republic. You have only accelerated your own capture." Anya, pinned by the electrical snare, watched as the woman gestured, and a squad of 4 armored troops dropped silently from the high rafters. War and time had indeed been patient. They hadn't just used Rhys's code. They had used his essence to draw her in. Her fate, and the fate of her hidden family, was now sealed within the cold, calculating grasp of the enemy.